I got questions going all over right now that I want to ask you. In New Orleans, what was your background up to this point?
So when I was introduced to network marketing, we had already relocated to Atlanta. But previously, when I was in New Orleans, my husband and I, we were extremely ambitious. We both wanted more out of life. We knew that we were going to live the life of our dreams. And so it was really exciting because when I was in New Orleans, I had my own beauty salon.
So how long were you there? Were you thinking of rebuilding a salon again, or was it shortly after that you got introduced to the networking? Hello, welcome to another episode of The Power of Influence. My name is John Haremza. I am your host. I'm super excited. We've got a power-packed businesswoman today that we're interviewing, Dr. Chyna Bethley. And she has actually been in the network marketing space for 17 years. She is, shared stages with icons, with legends. Let me just look here. People like John C. Maxwell, Les Brown, Bob Proctor, Kim Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the wife of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And so we're super excited. She is an 8-figure earner in the network marketing MLM space. And I know, Dr. Chyna, you've spent a lot of time in the world of trading, right? You were almost kind of a pioneer in that area, in that day trading. So I want to talk a little bit about that, but just if you wouldn't mind just touching a little bit deeper on some of your accomplishments. You've got a list here of accomplishments and I know you're a wife and a mother and all that kind of stuff, but just give us a little bit of a history on your business life.
Absolutely. First of all, John, I want to say congratulations on your podcast. I think it's absolutely amazing how you're interviewing some of the most iconic people inside of different industries in business. And I am so honored to be here with you on today. I know you mentioned that this is the first podcast for on this particular platform with Riverside, and I'm excited that I get to share just knowledge and wisdom and be here with you today. So yeah, I got my career started 17 years ago in the industry of network marketing, an industry at that time that was so taboo that you really needed resilience and a clear vision to make a decision to say yes to this industry. But to be very transparent, I was in a particular space in my life where my back was against the wall. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. We had just went through Hurricane Katrina a few years prior, and we were relocated from New Orleans to Atlanta. And when we did, we noticed one thing about the city of Atlanta that was very unique from anything that I had ever witnessed. And it was a city of networkers. It was people who were connected to the right people that gave you access to the right doors and the right resources. And one of the things that I did very quickly early on in relocating from New Orleans to Atlanta was I began to connect with the right people, and I developed the skill of learning how to ask the right questions to these people because I wanted to know how were they able to live a lifestyle that looked like celebrities, right? They were able to travel around the world. They were home throughout the daytime where most people were at work. Their children were going to the best schools and they had a lifestyle once again that just looked like celebrities. And I wondered, like, what did they do? And one of the things that they all had in common is that they were a part of this of great and powerful communities and networks. And so I knew at that time that networking was something that I needed to do. Fast forward, I discovered the industry of network marketing. And if I'm very transparent, I thought like most people thought about network marketing. I thought it was one of those things. That's how much our community had minimized this ecosystem of building global distribution lines. They called it a theme, right? And I was in a tough financial situation when I was introduced. We had been through Hurricane Katrina, but then shortly thereafter, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, at the time, I was a hairstylist. I was doing hair. That was something that I was extremely passionate about in the beauty industry. And I had to stop everything. Everything in my world just completely stopped. And I had to focus on my health. I went through chemotherapy. I went through radiation. I went through several rounds of surgery, all of the things. And my perspective on life really changed at that moment. I thank God for just his grace of me being able to get on the other side of that and that his promises have never failed. And so after dealing with breast cancer and surviving that by God's grace, I was introduced to network marketing. Someone introduced me by asking me, it was a client. She asked me, told me about this product. They had these reshaping garments, and she told me about the products that would help you to lose some weight. And I definitely needed to lose some weight at that time. And it was one particular question that she asked. She asked me, do you want to buy it retail or do you want to buy it wholesale? And being that I was already a businesswoman, I knew that buying it wholesale was the way to go. And that was the beginning of me getting introduced to an industry and stop it and not caring about what other people thought about the decision that I made.
Wow. I mean, now I got questions going all over right now that I want to ask you. So first off, 17 years ago, you got involved in the network marketing space, and you were in New Orleans, right? The hurricane hit, and so what were you doing in New Orleans? What was your background, up to this point?
Yeah. So when I was introduced to network marketing, we had already relocated to Atlanta. But previously, when I was in New Orleans, my husband and I was in high school. We were high school sweethearts, and we were extremely, extremely ambitious. We both wanted more out of life. We knew that we were going to live the life of our dreams. And so it was really exciting because when I was in New Orleans, I had my own beauty salon on Xavier University's campus, which was a really big deal because I was fresh out of high school. I had just graduated, and an opportunity opened up and I jumped in. And I mean, it was a big opportunity, 4,700 square foot, 2-story salon on Xavier University's campus. And anybody that's in the beauty industry, I want you to just think about having a beauty salon on a gold mine, because a lot of the freshmen, they can't have cars, so they have to find things in a local area to utilize. And so we are right here in the heart of Xavier University in New Orleans, Louisiana. And here I'm fresh out of high school with this 2-story, beautiful 4,700 square foot beauty salon. And so we were doing really well. My husband and I had just built our first home. And he had a music production studio in the federal building. So our goals were very, very big, but we were also, we wasn't just somebody that dreamed the dreams. We were a couple that executed on the dreams that we had. So we were doing really well. We had just had our daughter, and it was amazing. A great life until Hurricane Katrina hit. And everything was turned upside down. The business was gone. The beauty salon had 6 feet of water in it. My husband's music production studio, though it was on the 18th floor, the windows was blown out. The building was it was just horrible. So we knew that there was no way that we could go back to New Orleans and rebuild from such devastation. And we decided to relocate to Atlanta and rebuild here. Though we didn't lose our home was in perfect condition. We were on the West Bank, so we were a little bit out of the zone that was really devastated with Hurricane Katrina. We just knew to raise a daughter in those conditions was going to be really hard, and we wanted more. So we just decided to pack up, and we were already packed, but the house, we packed it up, we rented it out, and we relocated to Atlanta.
Wow. So this beauty salon, were you just a part of that, or did you actually start that?
No, I owned it. I was the owner of the salon.
So you were like super young.
I was super young, extremely ambitious. Everyone told me I was biting off way too much.
Yeah. And that probably just like motivated you, right?
Fuel my fire. It was like somebody saying you can't do it. And I was like, I'm gonna prove you wrong, So I definitely did it. And one of the challenges, to be honest with you, John, was, my mom and dad put me through private school, and they had this vision for my life. And the vision that they had for my life was very traditional. They had sacrificed so much to put me through a private school, and they really wanted me to go off to college. And so I was supposed to go off to college. And this was while I was in high school. I met my husband, now today husband. And I just didn't want to leave. I just didn't want to leave. Not to mention, I had my own plans. I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I knew that going to college was just something that I wanted to do to please them for the sacrifice that they made. And so I opted to go to a community college in New Orleans so I could stay home. I started doing hair while I was in high school at a salon. And then as soon as I graduated, I got my own. So, I mean, it was an incredible journey as I look back over it. But what that did for them is that showed them that there's more than one way to get to the top, because they were seeing a level of confidence and boldness and courage that most people never embody. And, fast forward all of these years later, it's still working out.
Wow. So, because things happen all the time in life, right? We have setbacks. There's things that happen that are completely out of our control, like, the hurricane, right? Hurricane Katrina. And so when that happened, you got 5 feet of water in your salon and you're faced with having to start over. Take me back to that moment. What did that feel like?
Wow. So that was like a twilight zone. I mean, I'm so excited. I was only in the salon about 2 months before this happened. And it was so interesting because one of the gentlemen that came into the salon to help us to build out our stations and all of the things that we were doing, it was so weird. He was talking to my husband about Hurricane Betsy. It's a hurricane that took place many years ago that we heard our parents talk about as we were growing up. And it's not a conversation that people would usually have because it was like maybe in the 70s or something. And so they were just talking about, and I can remember asking all of these questions about whatever they were talking about. And literally a few months later, we were dealing with the same thing. And so mentally and psychologically, with losing everything and watching it play out on the news, I mean, this was the biggest news around the world. People were seeing their homes and their businesses and their life be under, I mean, the whole city was underwater. My salon was lifted up, so it was elevated. So 6 feet of water wasn't 6 feet from the ground. And there were buildings that were completely covered. So what we decided to do during that time, while most people were going west because they told us that we could not go east because the storm was coming from the east. So just imagine the storm is coming from the Florida area, from the Gulf, from the east, and everyone is to go west. Everyone is to go to Texas, to, some part of Texas, go west. Well, what we discovered is that just driving, because let me be honest, when you are a New Orleans native, we don't really take hurricanes as serious as everybody else because they happen so frequently. So when the news, scares us and tell us to do all of these things, we, sometimes go into a hotel, usually in a downtown area, and just have a hurricane party. Everybody's together, we bring snacks, and we just get to a higher grounds, okay? And a lot of us were preparing to do that. So we were not as in tune. I'm young. I'm not focused on what the news is talking about. And we didn't know that it was that serious until we could not get gas one day when I left the salon. So we left the salon. We lived a little bit of a distance from the salon. My husband and I went to go get gas. We went to 5 or 6 gas stations and we couldn't get gas. And that's when we realized the severity that this isn't a game. People are leaving out of here. There's gas nowhere. So by the time we made it to pick up my daughter, everybody was in an uproar. And this was uh the day before we left. So there was no preparation time. I mean, this happened very fast. And so it was literally the next morning that we had to make a decision to leave. We was like, we got to get out of here. Like, this is serious. The mayor was on the news at the time. Mayor Reagan was on the news. And this is when it really hit me. If the gas wasn't it, what it really hit me is when Mayor Reagan got on the news and he said, if you decide to stay, because there were still debates. Our grandparents wanted to stay. They usually never leave. My mother-in-law wanted to stay. And he said, if you decide to stay, make sure that you have a boat and an axe and get to your roof. Now, I mean, a boat and an axe? Like, what are we talking? A boat? Who has a boat? How will you get the boat to the roof? I mean, to the attic? And with an axe, what's going on? And he was right. You would have needed a boat and you would have needed to get to your attic and you would have needed an axe to get out of it to survive that. And obviously, we know the devastation of Hurricane Katrina, all of the people that died and the tragedy that it was. And so when we were going through that, we decided after driving for 4 hours to go west like they instructed, we were only about an hour away and there was still no gas. So I became very concerned. It was multiple families driving in the same direction. We got into a city called Baton Rouge, Louisiana. That's normally takes 45 minutes to an hour. So imagine whatever city you live in, you drive this route, you know, uh, even if it's not frequently, it's 45 minutes away and it just took you 4 hours. There's no gas. The interstate is so crowded. It's back to back. People died on the interstate, and that was the fear. We was like, we're not gonna make it to Houston. We left too late. So we decided to do something which was completely um crazy, unorthodox, unbelievable. Nobody would have encouraged this. We went east because the traffic going east, there was none. It was completely clear. All we had to do was dodge all of the security, the police, or whatever. So we took back roads as long as we could and we fled. That's how I felt, east. And I can tell you the roads were still dark because the people east were still going west. So all of their gas was gone. And it was only God's grace. It was only God's grace to allow us. It took us probably about a whole day to make it 7 hours away, um not because the traffic was bad, but because we had to detour so much to get gas and to just survive. I can remember at one point, and I've shared this story many times. I can remember at one point we were driving going east from New Orleans to Atlanta. We were only taking back roads because everything else on the interstate was completely blocked off. And we could not see because the wind had already started coming. The storm was already coming. So the lights had blown out. People had evacuated. Everything was desolate. It was like something out of a movie. And we were driving and we couldn't really see where there's nobody to really give us directions. And the wind is coming, the rain is coming. And the interesting thing is we were in a expedition, a Ford expedition, and families, expeditions. We had it was a navigator, all these big trucks, and we're going, and our windshield wipers didn't work. So we had to keep spraying Rain X on the windshield to just get through this storm. And so we got to a point and I looked, I'm like, what is that in front of us? It was so dark we couldn't see it. And it was the Gulf of Mexico. We were literally right in the face of the Gulf of Mexico. And I can remember us hurrying up and turning left and driving so fast. I literally felt like in the Bible when God said, if you turn back, if you look back, you're going to turn into a pillar of salt. I did not look. I was so afraid in that moment because I knew the severity of the storm. We could see it and we were literally facing it and going straight into it. And so by God's grace, we made it to Atlanta. And when we made it to Atlanta is when we saw on the news that everything that we had known, everything that we had grown up with, everything that was a reality for us was literally underwater. People were on their roofs with signs. My grandmother had tricked us. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I told you that they usually don't want to leave. So she told us that she was going with my other cousins, and she told them that she was going with us. And in that time, everybody's frantic. So we didn't realize that she was just saying that so we could leave her there. And so my grandmother literally was stuck in New Orleans. All of us had made it up to Atlanta. She was on her roof and they had to airlift her up. It was devastating. I mean, it was absolutely devastating. So that's what it felt like. That's what the journey was like. It was like a twilight zone, losing everything overnight and not even knowing what's next. We were numb.
Yeah, I mean, I think, things happen in life, or like you're in the middle of that and you hear the talk or you hear the news, and we tend to think, it's not, nothing's ever going to happen to me, right? I mean, that's for other people. And then when you're in the middle of it and you're like, oh my God, this is really happening. Even like you said, driving west and concern, probably tons of cars stalled on the roads of lack of gas, and you're wondering if that's going to be you. And then you make the decision to turn and go back into essentially the storm. I mean, that's a bold decision. Yeah, but I mean, it led you to where so you end up in Atlanta, and then so how long were you there? Were you thinking of rebuilding a salon again, or was it shortly after that you got introduced to the networking concept? Or
So that's really interesting. We came to Atlanta and we saw more opportunity. We saw an opportunity to do more than what we did before. I wasn't thinking about staying in the beauty industry at that time. I was thinking about music. I went to school in New Orleans for music business. My husband was a producer. So remember, I had the beauty salon and he had the music production studio at the time in New Orleans. So when we got to Atlanta, we was like, this is a music city. Let's really go full for it with music. And so that's what we did. The challenge was, though we had insurance on the salon and a music production studio, the insurances was not paying out. They just bailed on us. And so we were left as business owners, as homeowners. We had built our home from the ground up. We were business owners. We were very young, but we were very successful. We were now standing in line for food and clothes, and in some cases, shelter. So we didn't even know how to operate from this. I mean, it was completely humbling. And so when we got to Atlanta, we were thinking music. Finally, FEMA did pay something out, and we were thinking, okay, we definitely have to rebound, but let's find a way to invest into our future. And music was what we decided. But right after that, that's when I found out that I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So it was Hurricane Katrina, immediately getting to Atlanta, deciding to rebuild after losing everything, still having the courage, the fortitude, the faith to rebuild. And during the rebuilding process, we literally had created what we believe was a hit song. We were doing a music video for it. I was the artist, my husband was the producer, and we came to Atlanta ready. We came to Atlanta diving in once again. And when I was preparing to do the music video, we had people that were flying in for the music video and we were preparing for it. That's when I got the news that I was diagnosed at that time with stage 2 breast cancer in my nipples.
I mean, I just can't imagine when you get news like that and you think everything's headed back in the right direction and you really are onto something, and then just that devastating news, right? And so what did you do at that moment?
So everything just stopped, you know? We had already been through so much. Most people were fragile. A lot of decisions was being made. We had some relief because FEMA finally came through. And we were just really ambitious with the relief. Most people, it wasn't enough for them, but it was something to get them out of the calamity that they were experiencing. And we, everything just stopped in that moment. I can remember specifically, once again, when you're young, you don't take certain things as serious as maybe you should. And the doctor, I went to the hospital for not a routine checkup because you don't do routine checkups at that age for breast cancer or mammograms. Those I didn't even know what a mammogram was at the time. And so what happened for me is I would have a sharp shooting pain that would come into my left breast that I couldn't explain. I didn't know what it was, but it was so severe that even though it only lasts about 3 seconds, whatever I had in my hand would completely drop out of my hand. That's how extreme it was. Didn't last long, but it was extreme. And these episodes last for a few months. And one day my husband saw that I had this episode and I dropped something out of my hand and I just grabbed my breast and it's like the breath just left out of me. He saw that. He said, no, we going to the hospital. His mom was a cancer survivor and she had lung cancer. She had a brain tumor. And I don't think he thought that, but I think he just didn't like what he was seeing and he didn't take it lightly. And so we rushed to the hospital, to the emergency room, and I wasn't in pain anymore, just a small time, but they did an ultrasound on me. And during that time, the lady was like, she said, you're so young, you won't need a mammogram for many years. And so I was like, okay, so they did the ultrasound. So I could remember when she came back in the room looking a little concerned, she was like, we need to do a mammogram. And I'm like, I know she said that I wouldn't need it for like 10 years or so. So what's going on? And so she was like, no, we need to do it now. So the next time that I went to the doctor was me picking up the reports from the mammogram, seeing what was going on. So I just didn't take it that serious. I just didn't think that it was going to be anything life altering. Cancer wasn't something that ran in my family. No one in my family ever had breast cancer. It wasn't something that was in the back of my mind. I'm young. It's just not something I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about our music video. I'm thinking about these people that are flying in town. I'm thinking about all of this stuff that we're getting together because we're the business and the talent in this. And I can remember going to the doctor and they took so long to call us to the back. And we had like a timeline. We just thought we was going to go in, pick up the results and go, whatever. And it took about an hour sitting in the waiting room. And I remember getting up and I went to the receptionist and say, hey, listen, could you ask the doctor to just email this to me or something? Because we got to go. Like, we got to get out of here. We got to go. Okay. We got things to do. And that lady said to me, she looked at me in that moment. And in that moment, her face turned into my mom's face. For whatever reason, I no longer saw this stranger as a receptionist. I saw my mom. It looked at me and said, listen to me, you little red girl. You better go sit your tail down and wait to hear what your doctor got to tell you. And when she said it with that level of intensity, it was only in that moment that it became that serious for both me and my husband. We looked at each other like two little kids and we sat down and we didn't say a word to each other about what we just experienced because it was so serious then. And when we got to the back and the doctor slowly told us these results, we didn't understand why she was taking so long, but now we know. She knew that what she was going to say to me was going to change my life forever. And she told me that I was positive, positive for breast cancer. And I don't know, in that moment, positive sounds like a positive word. It didn't resonate. It didn't resonate to me. And my husband was emotional before I was. I was still frozen, numb, still. And he's just holding my hand. And I'm thinking to myself, like, that's hard to digest. It doesn't run in your family. Once again, we got all of this stuff going on. Hurricane Katrina, now this, so here and that. But what I decided to take out of that room wasn't her telling me that I was positive for breast cancer at that time. What I decided to take with me out of that room was what she said next. She said, this doesn't mean that you have to die now. And your attitude will determine how long you live. That's what I took with me. That's what I held with me. Those are the words that I chose in that moment to hold on to so that the other words would not haunt me and cause my body to just completely shut down. And I left out of that room understanding that I still had power. I still had power. God had not forgotten me. He had not left me. He had not abandoned me. And if this had to be a part of my journey and a part of my story, as long as he would be with me, I wouldn't fail. And by his grace, I'm still standing.
Well, you think about, that decision to leave the doctor's office with that in your mind versus, because everybody, and things that happen, they happen to everybody, and it's what you do about them, as Jim Rohn says, that makes the difference. And you think about, where would you be, or would you be, had you left that office with this, oh my God, I've got cancer, I'm going to die, and manifesting that, versus, taking the positive, the attitude of, I'm going to get through this, we're going to be fine approach. And I mean, we can put that in almost any part of our life, right? Two people, identical circumstances, they make different decisions, and then they have completely different outcomes, but yet they were at the same point, right? And so I think that's a huge lesson. So how long did this battle of breast cancer go?
It went on from the time of first hearing that news to the final surgery. So what happened for me was I went through chemotherapy. That's something that they get done immediately. As soon as you find out they really want to move aggressively for chemotherapy, it wasn't a whole lot of time to think. It wasn't a whole lot of time to consult. It was a time where everybody is obviously saying, you got to just listen to your doctors. And that's what I did. So we went through chemotherapy. I had a very aggressive chemotherapy because they felt that I was so young, my body would be able to handle it. And that was like every 3 weeks I had to go in for another session where they basically are injecting poison into your blood and into your veins to kill out not just the cancer, but everything dies, which is why you lose the hair. I mean, I had no hair on my head, no hair anywhere. That was devastating within itself. But once again, interestingly enough, by God's grace, stood very positive during this time. I used this as an opportunity to educate, not knowing I was educating, but when I look back on it, I wanted to show my family what they probably would never see again, hopefully. So when my hair was falling out, I was like, oh my goodness, look at this. So it wasn't, I don't know, my approach was just different to it. I'm not saying I wasn't sad. I'm not saying I didn't cry. I'm just saying that I really believed deep down inside of me that I was going to be okay. I just believe that though so many people die from this horrible disease, I know that there are people that also live and have testimonies afterwards. And I just chose to believe that I was going to be one of those that was going to live and be able to be a blessing to other people. So it was obviously just devastating going through something like that. So from the time of hearing about it, chemotherapy, then you go to radiation. Well, first they remove it. So the surgery was first. They go in, they do a surgery, then they do chemotherapy, then they radiate it. So overall, maybe about 18 months to 2 years, your life is kind of on pause. You don't need to plan for anything. It doesn't really make sense. You just have to sit in this, trust it, and just everything else has to wait. And my life was very fast paced. We had a lot going on. We were, once again, extremely ambitious. That had to be put to the side. I had to focus on
Yeah, so it's like the world stopped
the
turning.
world had to stop for me for 2 years. 2 years seems like a very long time when you got big goals to reach by a certain time.
Yeah, when you're so ambitious and all of a sudden this just comes out of nowhere, and you have to deal with it, right? I mean, you have to. So then this 18-month battle, so to speak, and then at what point did you get introduced? Because you said early on in the introduction about everybody's attitude towards network marketing for the most part. It's,
At least at that time. At least at that time. I think they're better now.
yeah, I mean, I used to think that I didn't understand it, right? I didn't know anything about it, but I thought it was one of those things where you make the money and lose your friends. It was kind of my perception. And, but I got involved, very, very part-time when I got in the industry 37 years ago. And, my background being maintenance, and I was an introvert, right? Very shy, no confidence because I had dyslexia. So I struggled in school and all that. And so the idea of sales whatsoever, it wouldn't even enter my mind. Talking to people, I mean, I literally, that person that in the hallway, I wouldn't say hi to someone unless they said hi to me first. And then I'd like mumble it under my breath, right? And so when I first got introduced, and my first company, yours was weight loss, mine was a water filter. And when they first asked me to look, I thought they wanted me to build a display, right? Or maybe look at the quality of product. I mean, like, because I don't want to talk to anybody. But it's interesting because coming back to those decisions we make, because, I worked in a factory. I was working a long day. There was a breakdown, and I had to go to this. Was invited to a home party, and I mean, I just put in like a 10-hour day. I was already going to be late for the meeting. I was living in a trailer house at the time, and I did not want to go to this meeting. I wanted to just go home, right? Make a pizza, probably, right? Maybe have a beer and start it all over again tomorrow. But I made that commitment to go versus go home. And that one little decision completely changed the course of my life, right? And I got introduced. But then you think about the compounding effect of our decisions, because literally it, through me sharing it with others and so on and so forth, literally tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people, as a result of that little decision to go to that home party versus go home, changed my life, but many others. So your introduction to networking, right? So that it came after the battle with cancer?
Almost immediately after I was able to start to kind of get some normalcy to my life again, almost immediately after. So during this time, it's right around the recession of 2008 and 2009. So it's almost immediately after I'm done with radiation.
And so how was the introduction? Was it just the friend, or?
Yeah, so so what I wanted to do at that point, remember you asked, what did we decide to do when we came to Atlanta? We focused on music, but once everything shifted with breast cancer, I decided to go back to beauty. I decided to go back to a salon. I found a salon to work at here in the outskirts of Atlanta. And that gave me some normalcy. It gave me an opportunity to kind of rebuild my life, rebuild my confidence, just get some normalcy in my life. And while doing that, I met a client who we got close. My daughter and her daughter started to do dancing together. So they were dancing in all of the music videos as kids. These kids were dancing. They were, I mean, Soulja Boy. At this time, anybody that was hot in Atlanta, they were in the videos doing these little dances. And so we would always have to go. So my focus was no longer on me and my career. It was on my daughter. And that gave us some normalcy too, because I was in the beauty industry back again, but we still was very connected to the music industry at the time. And she introduced me to network marketing. So I trusted her. We had built up a relationship. I knew that she was a mom that loved her family. She was a soccer mom, very invested in her kids. And, she was somebody that was a reliable source. And so when she introduced me, her name is Charlotte Langford. When she introduced me to network marketing, my back was against the wall financially. I'm a businesswoman. I have big, bold, audacious goals, but I'm starting to maybe realize that maybe the life that I desired in my heart, I don't know, maybe I don't get that life again. So I'm appreciating everything about life at the time. And so when she introduced me, she was in my chair. She had come to the salon to get her hair done. And she was just telling me about the product. She didn't leave with the business. She was telling me about the product. I wanted to lose some weight. She knew I had went through everything with being diagnosed with breast cancer. And there was also a health component to the company. So she was telling me about the product. And so I was very interested in the product. And she asked that question, do you want to buy it retail or wholesale? And that's when the business acumen obviously stepped in. And I'm like, of course, wholesale. And so I ended up going to a meeting. She still had to ask me like 7 times before I said yes to go to this meeting. Cause I'm like, girl, I am not going to one of them things, But I was like, I don't want to lose her as a client either. So let me just suck it up and do her a favor, go to this little meeting, see what they're talking about. But they're not about to get me, okay? Because I'm not about to get got. Like that's my mindset at the time, because I'm thinking, once again, it's one of those things. And so during that time, simultaneously, I was in serious prayer. I was praying that my life would change. I was praying to get back to me again. I was praying that I could have a breakthrough. My clients were losing their jobs. Their husbands were contractors. The real estate bubble was bursting. They didn't have the money. It's a domino effect. Now they can't come and get their hair done. And so I went from living in the twilight zone of Hurricane Katrina, the devastation of being diagnosed with breast cancer. Now financially, I mean, it is horrible. My husband and I are living in an apartment. We had never lived in something so small, and we are feuding because finances are tight. And whenever finances are tight in a household with a couple, it's going to be bad. You're not going to be the version of you that you really are. They're not going to be the version of them that they are, because that's not the conditions that we're supposed to be living in. And I can remember praying. I was crying out to God, and I was praying for a breakthrough. I was praying for a change. And so when this came, did I recognize it as a vehicle? No. Did I think that it was the answer to a prayer? Absolutely not. But I was wise enough to go to that meeting. And when I began to listen with a different ear to everything that they were saying in front of that room, when I removed my guard that was up and I just started to use common sense, I didn't even need wisdom, just common sense. I knew I wanted more of what they had than what I had at that moment. And I made a decision. I was like, I'm going to figure this out, because I didn't have the money to get started at my first meeting, John. When I went to the meeting, it was $350. This is 17 years ago. I didn't have the money right away. Like, I was in a tough financial space. And I went home after that meeting and I talked to my husband about it, like many of us do. I went in there and I talked to him about it. I mean, he crushed everything that I said. I mean, we were going through such an ugly time. We couldn't even pay a light bill. So just imagine how bad it was in a household when you got two grown people, a husband and a wife, that can't pay one simple little light bill. It was horrible. That's how bad the times was. So I took the everything that I got from that meeting and I went into an environment that was not conducive for what I said. He was still in a dark place like I was in. He was still frustrated and upset that we were even dealing with this, you know? And so when I went in there, obviously I can't tell it to him the way they told it to me. Obviously, I can't break down the nuances of what they said, but I was excited and I did just a little bit of me. Just enough of me to want to do it, believe that it was real. Did I have some doubts? Absolutely. Because where do you normally go and see everyday people that look like you, that resemble you, that's making monthly incomes that usually take a year to achieve? You don't see that often, especially 17 years ago. So was there doubt? Yes. But once again, just like when I was in the doctor's office, I choose to hold on to the little bit of belief that I had. I brought it to my husband. He absolutely crushed it. And he didn't crush it because he didn't love me. He didn't crush it because he didn't want us to win. He crushed it because his belief wasn't there yet. He didn't hear what I heard. He didn't see what I saw, and I should have never expected him to. And so what I was wise enough to do by God's grace was walk away from that conversation. And with the little bit of breath that I had in me, the little bit of hope that I had in me, I held my head up and I looked up literally to the ceiling and I was like, God, if this is real, I need you to show me a sign. And when I tell you, it was the first time that I literally heard, I thought my husband had changed his mind. I heard that it's real. And if you don't move fast, you're going to miss it. That's all I needed to hear. When I heard that, I literally didn't realize. And I'm thinking to myself, what? Wow, this is real. He said, you got the money. You just think it's for the electric company. Now I got to break this part down, John. You got to hear this part. This is the part that's so powerful to me. We did not have enough money to pay the light bill because we were so behind on the light bill for multiple months. But even though we did not have all the money to pay the light bill, the little bit that we had that they would not take, we still had holding it so that we could keep adding to it so we could pay the light bill. That amount was just enough to start the business. It wasn't enough to pay the light bill because they would not take a partial payment from us because we had promised to pay and didn't pay. But it was just enough to start that business. Listen, I couldn't have told myself that. I wasn't thinking that way. I'm thinking that I'm in a deficit. I'm not thinking that I got enough to start this business. I ran in the bathroom and I called the young lady, Charlotte. I said, girl, come get the money. And she was like, I thought you was going to need 3 days, because that's what I told her. And so here's the thing for anybody that wants to change their life, that's looking for an opportunity. Even if you don't have the means right now, it's free to make a decision in your mind. I had made up in my mind that I was going to figure it out. I had made up in my mind, girl, give me 3 days. Even without the money and without the means, I made up in my mind that I wanted more. And I called her on the phone that same night. I didn't need the permission from my husband. I would have liked it, but without it, I still knew that we needed to change our life. And if God had chosen me to be the one to see that vision, to get the opportunity, then how dare I forfeit that? How dare I forfeit it? Because I don't know the woman that I would be today had I not made that decision. I went in the bathroom and I called on the phone. I said, girl, come get the money. And the rest is history. Oh my gosh. Listen, John, they told us something in that company. And I feel like This is an industry that should be about simplicity, because if it's about simplicity, then it'll duplicate. They told us that if you go and share this with 20 people and you help 10 of those people get 20. Now, mind you, my back is against the wall financially. I got some experience in business. I'm ambitious. I've never done this industry before, and most people think the way I thought. So I knew that my family members and friends would probably have the same response that I had initially. And it would have took me a lot of time telling them. So when they said go tell 20 people, I did not prejudge who I told. For me, it was how fast can I go tell 20 people? Because they said if you go tell 20 people that get started and you help 10 of those people get 20 people, you're going to make $10,000. Not $10,000 a month, just $10,000. Listen, I had never heard something so simple before in my life. I don't care what nobody talking about. To me, that was the easiest thing that I could do in that moment to make $10,000. I said, wait. So you're saying to me, all I need to do is go get 10 people, 20 people to say yes to this, and then help 10 of those people get 20, and I'm going to make $20,000, $10,000 for just talking to people? That's how simple I saw it. I saw it as simple as me just having conversations with people that were looking for what we had. I just needed to have enough conversation. So I hit the ground running. We did not have all of the fancy stuff that we have today. The system was a simple email. The system was hop on a regular call. There was no Zoom calls at that time. So all of the, how people feel like they need so much, we leverage what we had. And I feel like it allowed us to develop the skill that we really needed. It allowed us to develop the tenacity. We just went out and did the work. And so fast forward, I did not make $10,000. I made $3,500 in 2 weeks, which was a life changer within itself. It was in that moment because I didn't tell my husband that I did the business. I just started doing it. He noticed that things were changing for the better. And so he watched it, but he didn't say nothing. And so then at that time, checks were being mailed to us. When the check came in the mail, it was hilarious because when he looked at it, he could tell that it was a check. And I was like, oh, that's my check. And that was when he found out that I was really doing the business. Of course, he was on board then. But my first check was $3,500 for the first 2 weeks of doing a business. And my second check was $19,000. I had superseded what the goal was. I didn't even get the perfect Mac down pat. I ended up getting so if I needed 20 people, I got about 14 people and in that time frame. And then I really was working with about 5 of them, close to 5 or 6 of the people. And they were duplicating the process as well. And that took me to $19,000 because we were building deep. We were duplicating. We had a product that we really believed in. It really worked. People saw the results, the testimonies, and we were on fire. So we absolutely hit the ground running. Complete beginners.
So were you still working at the salon at this time, or did you just like go for it?
I'm still working at the salon, but I retired shortly thereafter, and I've never looked back ever since. This has been 17 years ago. And I love what I was doing with doing hair, but I did want more. I wanted to travel around the world. I wanted to do things for my parents. I wanted a different lifestyle. So I was still working at the salon once I got that $19,000 check, it happened so fast. I didn't plan to retire. And my salon was a benefit to me at the time because a lot of the people that I was meeting was my clients. It was other people's clients. It was other competitors that were hairstylists. I was like, you know what? We're competitors in the beauty industry, but we're not competitors for this. And I'm sure they're looking to make money too. I still believe to this day that hairstylists are some of the absolute best networkers in the industry. We don't have a retirement plan usually. We don't have anything to, prepare for a lot of times. And a lot of people don't even have a strategy to get from behind a chair. So I went after people that were also in the beauty industry, people that had boutiques, people that were entrepreneurs. And it just worked out. So yeah, I was still at the salon at the time.
I mean, that's a very inspiring story. I mean, so many people, with a little bit of pushback, whether it's a spouse or whether it's a negative friend or a family member, and they're like, throw their hands up. I mean, I think back when I first got, started, I went to that home party that I didn't want to go to. It was a water filter. Sales didn't even enter my mind. I thought I was looking at it, building a display or something. And I got so excited about what I saw. And I didn't understand networking at all. All I could see is a product that people needed, right? And I wanted it. And so I ended up writing a check out for $480, about 4 of these filters. And I came home that night. I was living at that time with my fiance in a trailer house. And she's like, oh my God, what did you do? And I'm like, don't worry about it. They're going to hold the check till Friday and it'll be fine. right? Because I wrote a check out for this. And then I went on to tell her that I wanted to invest $5,000. I mean, literally, I mean, she's talking to, even people at work saying, John has completely lost his mind, because for me with dyslexia, I mean, I was only making $9 an hour, but I loved what I did. I was a maintenance person. I really was, I loved it. I loved what I did. And then I start this part time. I mean, just like you said, none of these things that we have today existed. Zooms and I mean, it was all just three-way phone calls and it was conference calls. And I mean, I would be like using my breaks to make phone calls. And I mean, I remember when 6 months in, I decided to go full time. And everybody at work, teasing me and, all that kind of stuff. And I remember saying, you could have heard a pin drop, right? I said, the way I see it is the worst thing that can happen if it doesn't work is I'll have to come back and get a job like you've got, right? But you know what? It's their negativity that motivated me because I didn't really get anyone that I knew involved. I started out, with newspaper ads and the 3-foot rule. I mean, if it moved, I talked to it. If it didn't move, I'd kick it. Then if it moved, I'd talk to it. Right. I mean, it was, but the other thing in listening to your story is, with what we have today, right? We have so many tools and now with AI, but the negative, it's can get information so quickly, but the negative is people are not learning the skills, right? We did, right? Because we had to learn the skills and the people today, I mean, literally, if some of these tools and techniques and, things like AI, GPS, I mean, they're completely dead in the water, right? But we've developed all those skills, so it's going to be interesting to see how the future, because without people learning some of the fundamentals and some of the basics and anything in life, when something happens, they literally, that old saying, don't know enough to come out of the rain, right? So gosh, our time is just like flying by here. But I know you've had just a phenomenal career, 17 years, you multi-millionaire earner in this industry. So you had this first experience, you've learned the fundamentals, you fell in love with the freedom and how you help people, and just it opened a world to me that I didn't even know existed. And one that, all of a sudden I was embraced. And one of the things I found so interesting, I'm working in this factory, right? And I remember, the upper level management were like upstairs and literally me on the floor as a maintenance person, I couldn't even talk or communicate. Here I come into network marketing, people making in a month what I hope to make in 2-3 years, and they're wrapping their arms around. They recognize that I had ambition, right? But they're wrapping my arms around me like I'm an equal, like I'm a real person. And it just, I mean, it was an interesting experience. I ended up 6 months into it, quitting my job, going full time, and now it's been 37 years, and it's just been I mean, I love the saying that it's not what you earn, it's who you become in the process. Because I really believe network marketing builds people, right? I mean, it can take someone and help them realize some of the hidden ambition and talents and just the power within somebody that maybe in their real job they may excel, but they're never going to excel the way they could in the network marketing space. And so it's been a fabulous career for me. I know it has been for you. So after this weight loss company, how long were you there? And then what I know was the next, you stumbled into the trading.
Yeah. So interesting enough, I probably would have stayed there. I'm completely loyal. Like my loyalty is, I mean, is incredible. So what ended up happening is I ended up having a daughter. So after I went through breast cancer, they told me that I would not be able to have any more kids, but because of the type of breast cancer that I had. And I just chose not to believe that, but I also use a lot of wisdom. And my daughter at the time, I think she was like 8 or 9 years old. She may have been a little older. And she ended up telling me she had a dream about a little girl and a little boy. Now, she don't know, but her obedience in telling me that dream, it really ignited my faith in being able to have more kids. And I really began to go before God. I began to pray. I had just finished the 5 years of tamoxifen, and I really was hoping to have more kids. So I ended up, fast forward, having a daughter. She was born at 24 weeks, 1 pound, 8 ounces. So it was devastating. So my company that I was in with the weight loss and the nutrition, I believe that residual income would last a lifetime. It was my first company. I didn't know when you stop, when the work stopped, the money dropped. I didn't realize that because I was in NICU 4 times a day, just being there with my daughter, making sure that she breathes, similar to what I went through, my world stopped. So when we came out of that, by God's grace, she's now 12 years old. She's completely fine. She's healthy. She's well. It's a complete miracle. It's a complete blessing. But during that time, when I went back to my business, there was no business to go back to. Everything was like gone. And so that 4-month period that I went through everything, the way that that compensation plan was set up, people were making different decisions and I was the driving force. So without me driving it, it was business just failed. And so I began to just focus on my daughter. I went through a serious depression just because I just didn't, that was another serious change. And I started to be like, wow, this is a lot. Hurricane Katrina, being diagnosed with breast cancer. Now my daughter is born 1 pound, 8 ounces. Like, whoa, like what's going on? It was constant blows. And this is not little small, but this is major life altering blows that we're getting. So what ended up happening was I got into a gold company briefly where we saved precious metals. We literally saved these little small bullion bars of gold. And that was interesting, but it just didn't take off the way I thought it would. I made decent money. Most people in my group wasn't making money. We never know how much money we was gonna make. It was one of those compensation plans where you could make tens of thousands one week or 1 month, and the next was barely nothing. So it wasn't consistent, and they wasn't really willing to grow. The founders have to be open to listening, to what could take it forward. And I just didn't feel like that was in it. So that's what led me to trading. I thought I was going to be done after that gold thing. And once again, I did well. I made some money. I learned a real good skill. We began to acquire a bunch of physical gold. So that was a good thing. But when it came down to trading, um, I did not see myself in the trading space. So that was really hard for me to digest. And I thought that I was done with the networking industry at that moment. I was like, you know what? I could find several ways to make money. I don't like my income being predicated on whether or not somebody else wants to build or work. Like, I'm completely passionate about this industry, but not many people are going to have that level of passion. And I was like, I'm done. So I came up with a plan. I was going to get back into the beauty industry. At this time, the beauty industry was booming. They were wearing like these wigs and girls were making like $2,000 for stuff that was quick and easy to do. And I was like, wait, what? And my daughter was getting older. I came up with a plan. So in between this time, because we did so well in my first company, we had our own reality show on BET. We're up at the BET Awards. We're walking the red carpet. Everybody knows my story globally. Our story has been all over the world where they're, hearing about how these young people have retired. And so now I'm kind of embarrassed to now come out of retirement and go back into the beauty industry. But I'm desperate. I need the money. And I came up with a plan that I was going to say if anybody saw me that I was showing my daughter the beauty industry. But I was desperate. I needed something. And I was wise enough to pray before I made the decision. And my prayer was, God, if this is not the will that you have for my life, I need you to show me what is. And the next day I received the phone call. And when I received that phone call, it was about trading. And I'm telling you, my face was so balled up on the other side of that call. I was like, I am not interested in trading. What is this? Forex. What is that? The size of a man's t-shirt? Like, what are you even talking about? Like, give me marketing, give me beauty. Don't give me this foolishness. I was ready to say no. But in that moment, I literally heard Holy Spirit say, didn't you just ask me for something? And that's when my whole disposition changed. And I began to listen once again with a different ear. And I began to just be quiet, like remove all of the frustration. And I heard from a gentleman who I still work with today, Garrett Roberts, and everything that I thought this was supposed to be in this industry, everything that I thought you needed to be a specific type of person. I had the image in my mind, and he was none of those things. And I said to myself, and they were making a ton of money. And I'm thinking to myself, if he can do this, I'm going to do this. I'm about to crush this. And I decided to get started in trading space. And we created a whole culture, making it available, making it accessible to the masses of people, making it affordable for people to really learn the skill. We didn't have all the technology then. You had to come in and actually learn the skill of trading. We were up during the London session, okay, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, looking at Fibonacci's and support and resistance and identifying what pips were and all of these different terminologies. And for 8 years of my career, that's what we're 10 years actually of my career. That's what we did. We helped people to learn the true skill of trading when nobody would ever be able to take that away from them. And it honestly created hundreds of millionaires. We created once again something that was phenomenal. We produced $1 billion company because of it. And I mean, people are still benefiting off of the fruits of our labor to this day.
And that's a really, really big point is, I mean, trading is a life skill, right? I mean, if it's not easy. It's, an emotional roller coaster, but if you have the patience and consistency, you learn and really actually learn, right? And I'm still learning, right? I keep thinking I have it down and then I get my head handed to me. Um, but it is, once you master it, I mean, I can tell you from what I've learned in the trading space, it's helped me in so many other areas, even investing in stocks and what have you. But the other thing I just want to bring back to light is, because people think nothing good can ever happen to them, and sometimes only bad things happen to them. And I mean, I look at the things that you have gone through, and you maintain your attitude, right? And that you're not going to accept defeat. You're just going to keep pushing forward, and you just keep recreating something bigger than the last time, right? And it's very inspiring, because I mean, that's what networking can do. But you have to make that decision. You have to make that decision to commit and to be, to be consistent. And you wake up one day, as I have, as you did, and your just life is completely and totally changed. It doesn't matter where someone is in life. You don't have to stay there, right? You can make one little decision with focus and consistency, and you wake up one day and everything can change, right? But the wrong decision, is just going to head you in. And you mentioned something very, very early on too, about being around the right people. And that's just going to bring us back. I feel like we could keep talking forever. We're so far over time, but influence, right? We talk about the power of influence. And so maybe, to kind of help us close out here, maybe talk about, some powerful influences, along your path and your journey that has really impacted you.
Yeah, I think the biggest influence is understanding that business, specifically the type of business that we do, is a very spiritual experience and it requires extreme faith. It requires a level of faith because before I ever got in the environments, I first had to believe, and I had to believe something that I had not seen, right? Not in my immediate, right? It was a movie that I watched that made me want to get into business. I watched this movie called Boomerang. I don't know if the movies was back in the 90s, but it's with Eddie Murphy and I think Robin Gibbons and Haley Berry. And when I saw Robin Gibbons, it was my first time seeing a woman with that much power. And I can remember it was that moment I was like, that's it. That's what I'm gonna do. She had this marketing firm, and I can remember Eddie Murphy was the guy, and I had never seen the guy being overtaken by a woman. I was like, that is it. And that's all I needed. The rest of the movie, that part didn't matter. I saw what I needed to. I was like, that's it. So even though that influence wasn't in my immediate, even though it was through a movie, I saw something that sparked something on the inside of me. And I believe that we just have to choose what we take with us out of the room, what we take with us out of the experience. Do you take something that's going to positively impact your destiny, or something that's going to cause you to be suppressed and down, right? And so when we think about the power of influence, there are things that have influenced me. To being a woman that I am right now, to not care about what other people think, because I invest time in personal development. I don't invest time into concerts. I invest time into conferences and mentors, right? And so I'm sitting at conferences, I'm on the front row, and I'm learning and I'm gleaning from people who already have the results that I want. And that has been a life skill for me, to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into personal development so that I'm not manipulated by other people's opinions who don't have the results that I want. So I believe one of the most important things that people can do is get in the room by any means necessary to the people who have the results that you already had, especially when they have similar core values that you have as well.
Yeah, I heard something the other day on social media, and it was, what I think is, stop listening to people that have never been where you want to go, right? I mean, and that's one of the challenges. People, they listen to the wrong people. And I mean, because there's negative influence, there's positive influence. And I mean, the other side of influence too is the influence that we have on others. I mean, you think about the influence that you've had on other people, right? And the influence you've had on their lives. And so we're way over time here, so we're gonna wrap this thing up. Any last comments? I just really enjoyed this conversation. Literally an hour has gone by, more than an hour, and I feel like we could go another hour, but we can't. We'll do it again though. We'll pick this up and we'll do another one, because I've really enjoyed just digging into your story. And because people, they see you today and they have no idea the path that you've traveled and all the things that you've gone through. They see someone ultra successful and they think it's easy for them, but they don't know, the path that you had to go through. So yeah, congrats on that. So last comments.
They see the glory, but they don't know the story. And that's why I thank you so much for creating a space like this. I know you were talking a little bit about how we met in person a couple of months ago before. I don't know if they were able to capture that part.
I don't know. Maybe I didn't. I think actually that was in our first tape where we had something wrong. But
Did you want to share that?
oh yeah, that we were actually in Mexico, right? That story. Yeah, when we were in Mexico in Tulum, that brought us together. And well, before that, Matt had put us on the phone together, right? And we talked a little bit there. And then when we were in Mexico, I think, when was that? Like August or something of last year? Yeah, and we were in Tulum, and we had a chance to sit down and talk. And I mean, your positivity and your energy was just, I'm like taken back. I'm like, wow, this is a powerful woman. So yeah, I mean, everything in life, we meet people. We met that day, and I could tell right then that immediately, without you saying a word, that how powerful you were.
Well, I appreciate you so much because it's so interesting. Before we met, the reason I was so excited to talk to you with Maddie when we had flown out to Detroit to sit down with the founder and just see what this company offered and the value that we could bring to it. He showed me something. And I remember seeing your content, John, some of the most incredible content. And I was so excited about it because I can tell you understood digital marketing. And I had just actually gotten into the digital marketing space a few years prior, did extremely well. Nobody even knew I was doing it, created a faces account, and I could see some of the same strategies and framework that you were using in your content. And I was so excited. So when I discovered that you were a part of, like something so phenomenal, because I saw that you were already trading and I thought it was so incredible. I was just elated and I was excited. So we were able to see it connect in Tulum, Mexico. I was like, this is just some of the most powerful people, some of the most genuine people, incredible people. And I'm excited to see what God is going to do with this journey. And so this is the book right here that I'm excited about, The Power of Influence, your book right here. This podcast is already going to do some amazing things, but The New Language of Influence, this is a book that everybody needs to pick up and go and read. It's going to be an absolutely amazing read for somebody who has the influence, who's been in the industries, just a business of investing, and is helping so many people to win. So I just want to say thank you. I'm so excited that I could be the first guest on the Riverside part of the podcast. And I know many more guests are going to come and lives are going to be transformed because of the story. So I'm excited, to put people in a position to just believe bigger. Once again, this is a business that is very spiritual, that requires faith. And so get a clear vision on what you want and what you desire, and don't let anybody stop you from getting it done. So I'm excited, John. Thank you so much for having me and Hour of Influence.
Well, thank you, Chyna. And your influence is going to continue on through this podcast, because a lot of people are going to listen to this, and I know you're going to inspire them and influence them. I mean, just some of the things that you said could just through this podcast could change someone's life, right? And they relate with you, and they're like, I can do this too. And so thank you so much. And guys, tune in, share this with others, and let's continue to not just build businesses, but build people. So thank you, guys. Thank you.